capes and conundrums. Alviara lets out a slight gasp as they reach the apex of the motion, and then they begin to fall. They land on a lower tier of a skyscraper, and he seems to accelerate in a smooth movement. Then gravity presses down on Alviara as Robin leaps again, and they hurl through the air, out of the traffic lanes and startling a few different Sonir as they easily crest in height and land lightly hundreds of feet higher than their last start point. I'm never going to get tired of doing that, Robin notes, and Alviara lets out a slight laugh. Easily amused? If by easily amused you mean enjoys breaking the laws of physics as previously understood, then yes, I'm easily amused. Robin notes with a grin. I'd ask if you're comfortable on my back, but you clearly have the cushioning to take it. What was that supposed to be? I'm fairly average as women go, although I understand that puts me on the level of spine cracking for a human woman, Alviara notes, and Robin offers her a smirk over his shoulder. She wraps her arms around his shoulders and simply can't reach her hands around the other side. Robin may not be as big as some of the other soldiers, but he's still so much massively trained man that he dwarfs her in almost every respect. So what was it? An observation? A compliment? An insult? Robin considers out loud, and the tensing of his legs is all the warning Alviara gets before they're suddenly rising upwards fast. The slight arc of the movement has them land on the top of a gargoyle before Robin slides down, its back with trivial ease and a casual gait. I'm not sure. It just sort of slipped out. What did it sound like? You're toying with me. Well, yes. Aren't dates supposed to be fun? Robin asks shortly before a small swarm of Sonir swoops in. Since when could Trets fly like that? One of them asks. I'm not a Tret and I can't fly, Robin says quickly. She's a Tret and I jump good. Either you took a shot in the head and lost some verbal skills, or you're quoting something, Alviara says. It's a quote, Robin remarks. Now, do you girls want something, or? The swarm scatters, but not too far. They're going to be following us for hours, Alviara notes. How about we give them something to chase then? Robin asks. Go, she tells him, and he races along the tier of the skyscraper and launches off. Alviara has to use Axiom to keep her grip, as the wind resistance to the sudden movement is like being caught in a storm. There is no arcing in this jump. It's a straight shot from one skyscraper to another with neither rise nor dip. He also doesn't land on the next skyscraper. He kicks off it and suddenly they're going diagonal and up before kicking off again and going down. The bit of free running turned mad game of human ping pong as he zips through the city before Robin launches himself up and then slowly comes down on the top of a skyscraper, grabbing onto its highest point and hanging on by what seems to be only his fingertips. A slight whirl of ash and smoke wave around them in the higher winds of the city, where just a hint of the brimstone from the volcanic trench the city's cave is carved into. Having fun? He asks her, and she gives him an odd look. Giving people something to chase generally stays a little further down from the sound barrier. Alviara chides him, despite smiling at the absurdity. He looks over his shoulder with a roguish grin before easily pulling himself up to the next level. The pull is with such force that he easily crests to the top and lands lightly at the very tip of the skyscraper's spire. Really? I never would have guessed, he says as he holds his arms out, turns, and then regards the city below before glancing at the blimps above. Can you spot them? If they want to play, then they can be fun to play with. What are you planning? Nothing hurtful or harmful. Not even a crass word, Robin assures Alviara. Over there to your left, 2 blocks forward. I recognize the bandana. Alviara says, and he nods. And she's moving at, okay, time to say hello. Robin says, do I need to say hang on? At the end of this, you're going to need a pry bar to get me off. Poor choice of words, Robin taunts, before a twitch of his legs lets them through the air. Swooping is not generally associated with wingless beings, especially not with apes, let alone an ape giving a piggyback ride to another ape. But damn it, if Robin doesn't live up to his name and swoop right past the young Sonir who flares out her wings in shock and flutters around a bit in complete surprise. Robin has kicked off the side of a skyscraper and launched himself away before any further reaction can be mustered. "You are a cruel, cruel man," Alviara chides him as she laughs. "Oh yes, by all means, tell me how naughty I am," Robin says with a grin over his shoulder, and she flicks him in the forehead for that. He clutches at his heart and begins staggering in jest. Despite them being over 20 stories straight up with no railings, he mock staggers harder, and she slips off his back in time for him to fall to the floor with a dramatic, "Blarg, I am dead." "Could you get any goofier?" Alviara asks, dumbfounded, and Robin laughs. "Not without going to a literal school for clowns. But I think I do pretty good without formal education." Robin remarks, and she scoffs. "Tell me something. When it comes between the undaunted and the rest of humanity, how far apart from the common man are you? Physically, I know you're near the peak of the peak. But behavior-wise? We're more chaos-prone and a lot more energetic, so we get up to a lot more. But it really depends on the person. Sure, there are broad averages, but you'll never meet an actually average person. A normal human is a mathematical concept, not a real thing. And those averages are? Alone, a human is smart, adaptable, quick to learn, and quicker to overcome. In groups, we can be dumb, panicky, and downright incapable of understanding even the simplest concepts. There's good and bad, Robin explains. That sounds very normal. Peer pressure making monsters of people the galaxy over, Alviara says before considering. I guess it was a dumb request, to be honest. Then why did you ask it? Robin asks. Well, you'd think that a species that came out of cruel space would be very different. But, well, you're apex tret with redundant biology, basically, as a species. But the undaunted you do things so very differently than most trets, like Canidors or Apuk or Dzeden. You're predators in a concrete jungle. And like most predators, when well fed and safe, they get fat and lazy in a hurry. When humans become common throughout the galaxy, the only way to tell the difference between human and tret will be when you watch them eat or some kind of disaster strikes. Robin returns. Besides, name one military that doesn't make powerful predators out of the people they recruit. Well, are we counting armies in name only? We're counting armies that can be reliably expected to run into combat. Not any that I know about. Even armies specializing in drone use and remote piloting prosthetic bodies for combat tend to have a certain assurance and quick reflexes. Exactly, Robin says, before kipping up and standing next to her. There are some things that are just universal to combat. It still doesn't explain how differently you humans are acting. First contact is generally a bit more, I'm not certain. You should be having a harder time of this, or I don't know, Alviara says, and Robin shrugs. I'm hardly an expert on first contact situations. You're in one. Am I, though? Remember, Earth was sent a beacon to teach the languages and explain that the rest of the galaxy couldn't come to us. We had to go to it. Is that normal? No, but then why would we act in a normal way? We're cut off from the homeworld and what resources it has, which means it's time to adapt or die. There's also ways in which we have to test the galaxy, so we can learn from it and understand it. And you don't stress test something by being gentle or predictable. You do it by pushing it to its limits. Really? At least that's how I figure things. Do note I'm not part of the diplomatic corps. Still, on the subject of diplomacy, my hobbies seem to have... Robin is cut off when the swarm of Sonir teenagers arranges itself around them. Really? It took you this long? Not everyone had a communicator on and had to be chased down. One of the girls says, Okay, you need to do something about that, because communication is the most important part of being in a team. Otherwise, someone will screw things up. Robin remarks to them before turning back to Alviara. Anyways, as I was saying, we've been following some of my hobbies, but not so many of yours, so in the light of getting to know each other more. Where to next? Well, if that's what you want, Alviara says, as she takes a couple of steps and leaps away. Follow me. To where? Robin asks, as he lands beside her moments later. You'll see. But don't think you're the only one who can use Axiom to get around. It's easy. I'm aware of how easy it is, but I don't see many people using it like that. Why? People are a lot less eager when they think they might run into a wall, Alviara explains. Hey, wait for us, a girl from the swarm of Sonir declares, and the entire flight gives chase. The third wheels are catching up. Robin notes calmly as she leads him through several more jumps and then a rooftop garden. In a shadowed part of the dark city is a small rooftop garden, its dim phosphorescent glow invisible from a street over. But these are clearly darkness-adapted plants that thrive on the warmth in the air and the richness of the thin amount of ash that is always ever so slightly swirling about. It then hits Robin that the garden is an inversion of the world itself, a single patch of life in a dark and dreary-looking city, the opposite of the lava trenches of Skathak, who are individual and relatively small scratches of concentrated death on a world otherwise fed keenly and deeply by it. Robin wonders what it would look like to have something from this garden escape and claim an entire skyscraper. Would that even be a bad thing for a building to be covered in flowering vines? He supposed that depends on the flower. I didn't expect this, Robin admits before looking around. The glow is so pale that the lights on the other buildings drown it out entirely. A little touch of life. It's a wonderful place to read. A place to calm down after a bad case. Ah, that makes sense, Robin remarks as he sees the Sonir swarm swooping down around them to look around. More than one of them seem to be completely surprised that the garden is here at all. How did you find this place? You're not a Skathak native from what I understand. No, but getting lost can sometimes be an advantage, and a place to just think is useful. I suppose that makes sense, and... Are you one of the supervillains? One of the girls asks, interrupting him. All right, do you girls understand just how rude this is? Robin asks, and there's a pause. I've played back a bit, but following people around and having a full-on search grid is going far too far. It's not too bad if we're just following. You're getting very close to a crime, though, so can you please knock it off? Robin asks, and there are some sighs of disappointment as the swarm flutters off. Now, where were we?